My name is Mark Miller, and I grew up chasing the dream of becoming a fearless reporter, the kind who exposed secrets and rattled the powerful. College was supposed to be my launch pad. John Carter, a legend hardened by 40 years in the business, was the gatekeeper. I thought I'd be chasing scandals and front-page stories. Instead, he shoved a stack of errands into my hands and told me to keep quiet. That was the day I learned dreams don't shatter with a bang, they suffocate, one copy run at a time. Once, when Frank Wilson was off on sick leave, Wiscott let me write a small filler for the paper, which everyone liked. That summer, I was assigned to tag along with Frank as an intern. Intern. That was the next step on the ladder to having my own column. Frank covered the courthouse scene, and I knew that a lot of great stuff happened there. Listen, Mark, this rag is just about the smallest paper I have ever worked for. Most of the guys here have worked at some of the most prestigious papers in the country. Before this, I was at the Times. I looked at Frank, his weather-beaten face showing the ravages of drink, his eyes a testament to the fact that he never quit. Be careful, kid. This job can bite back hard. I know. Before you ask, I was fired from the Times for printing something I thought was true. It turned out the guy was innocent. I must have been so drunk when I wrote that piece that I crossed the line, and here I am. I listened to the old man, but saw the despair written on his face. Frank knew that the once promising career he had worked so hard for had been washed away in a sea of booze and inaccurate reporting, while I could hear it in his words. We worked together that entire summer, and partially through the fall. Then I was summoned to the Franketer's office. Frank tells me that you're a pretty good kid. I have a proposition for you. My wife has been complaining that our paper doesn't have a single page devoted to the women in the area. I have decided to start a column for women, and I want you to do it. I started to say something, but John stopped him. I know what you're going to say, Mark, but I don't have any female reporters, and I can't afford to hire anyone right now, so you're it. Frank is retiring at the end of the week, and you can have his office. But by Friday, I want an outline of the type of things you think you'll cover, and of course, a woman's name that you will write under. I was stunned. It was what I wanted. A column of his own, that is. But I had expected to take over Frank's slot. Now he wants me to do a column for women? For the rest of the day, I wandered around, trying to figure out what I would write about, with just the bare basics listed. It wasn't until I got home and talked to Mother that I found out just what the women in town wanted. Things like who is sponsoring the flower show, who attended, all of the church news, of course, who is this year's debutante queen, and maybe a good recipe added in. Mark, women are nosy. They like to hear the gossip and see who wore what where. I had written down everything Mom told me, and the next morning, I gave it to John. I like it, Mark. I like the concept a lot. A half news, half gossip column. The ladies will eat it up. What name have you decided on? I haven't given it much thought yet. I wanted to get your okay on my ideas first. Figure out a name and have a column ready by Monday. We'll run it. I left his office, still confused, but willing to give it a try. I went to Frank's old office, now vacant. It still held the musky smell of Frank's cigarettes, the desk and floor thick with a dusty film. I spent the rest of the day just cleaning out all the old files. The single window looked like it had not been cleaned since before I was born. Finally, I had most of the offending dust and film cleaned off the desk and credenza, and all the files boxed and sent to storage. Then I made arrangements with the janitorial company to give the office a thorough cleaning that night. Over dinner, I told Mom the news. He liked it. I have to have a column ready to run on Monday, and I think it'll just be a short one. I still have to find a name to write under, and a name for the column. Mom and I tossed around several combinations before we settled on Rita. It was the name of a character in a popular police show to which I held a fondness. The column would be called Rita's Report. That night, I picked my mother's brain again, then wrote my first column under the name of Rita Miller. I added one of Mom's recipes at the end. The next day, I went to his new office. It was sparkling clean, the scent of citrus in the air. I sat at the computer terminal, then edited the piece, adding and subtracting bits and pieces until I was satisfied. At the top, he put Rita's report. With a single stroke of the keyboard, I sent it to the printing plant for then Monday run. My column was a hit from the first moment it hit the stands, and I was summoned to John's office. "You have a hit on your hands, Mark. Mrs. Pierce wants to meet you this afternoon at 2. Don't be late." I knew who she was. Dorothy Pierce was the widow of the man that started the paper, and one of the most influential people, let alone women, in the state. I rushed home and changed into my best suit. The drive to her home took about an hour. Her secluded estate a 400-acre reserve for animals, as well as a retreat from which she rarely ventured. I pulled into her driveway and drove up the tree-lined, smooth asphalt road. Promptly at 2, he rang the bell, being admitted by Mrs. Pierce herself. "Yes?" "You asked to see me, ma'am." She had a stunned look on her face, but let me enter. I followed her into the study. She was a formidable-looking woman, not at all the frail, tired woman many envisioned. She looked very fit and trim, her gray hair well coiffed, her clothes tailored to accent her figure. Her sharp blue eyes looked me over for what seemed forever before she beckoned me to sit. "John told me he was going to start a women's column, and since I leave him to hire people, I expected that he would at least use a woman to write this column. However, you have a style with words that pleased many of my friends. Would you like to continue to do this column, Thomas?" "Yes, ma'am. I have always wanted to be a columnist, and this is a good way to start." "I see. That's a fine attitude, Thomas. But we will have some problems to work out, of course. Like, what do you intend to do when you're asked to speak at a luncheon, or attend some function or another, so that you will be able to report the even with accuracy? If you showed up like you are now, young man, we would both be in trouble. I am sure that John overlooked it. But have you, though, about that aspect of this job?" I was stunned. I never figured that I would have to actually go anywhere. I thought I could just call around. "Stand up, Mark, and take your jacket off." I did. Then she walked around me, making small noises in her throat. "Is your mother Linda Miller?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. I know your mother from several events we have attended together. By the way, I have a dinner planned for 3 weeks from now, and I plan to introduce Rita to my guests. So, if you want to continue your column, then you'll have 3 weeks to become Rita." I fell back in my chair, my mouth wide open. "Now don't fight it, Mark. You wanted a column, and now you have one. You just have to make a few adjustments in how you look." She saw the look of bewilderment cross my face as I mentioned the cost. "Ma'am, I can't afford anything. With my college costs and all, I'm broke all of the time." She went to her desk, and opening it, took out her checkbook and wrote a check. "I think this will do for now, and I'll double your salary. After all, columnists make more than interns." She showed me to the door, gradually easing me out. What I did not see was that after I left, she leaned against the door and started to chuckle. All the way home, I felt my stomach tightening as I realized what I had to do to keep not only my column, but the raise I had been given. The money would pay for all of my college and more. They never mentioned anything like this in school, that's for sure. I walked in the house, my head down, almost in a sulk when Mom stopped me. "What's the matter, Mark? Lose the column already?" "No, Mom. I have to dress as Rita. Mrs. Pierce said that I might be asked to speak at a luncheon or attend something, and the women would expect to see a woman, not a man. She gave me some money, but within 3 weeks, I have to be Rita." Much to my dismay, Mom started to laugh. "It's not funny, Mom." I stormed to my room and shut the door. Half an hour passed, then I heard a soft knock on the door. "Come in, Mom." She came in and sat on the bed. "I want to show you something, Mark." She opened a photo album to the first marker she had inserted. "This is a picture of you at age 6, at Halloween." It was me, dressed as a girl. She went through almost every year, and every Halloween I had dressed as a girl, right up to my senior year in high school. "It would seem that you like to dress as a girl. at least once in a while. Think of this as one long Halloween party. I knew that she was right. I did like to dress up now and then, but didn't want to admit it, then or now. Why don't you get undressed and I'll take some measurements? That way we'll know what to buy. I stood up and undressed to my briefs. Measurements were taken, a list made, and Mom announced that we were almost ready. She had me wait for a moment, left the room, then returned with a pair of pantyhose. Put these on Mark. You can't try on heels wearing socks. The enormity of what I was about to do loomed over me, and for the first time I realized that not only would I become Rita soon, it was going to last for a long time, especially if the column grew popular. That would mean that I would be dressing as a woman full-time, attending all of the functions that required I be there. Dressing up once in a while was fun, and I liked it, but doing it every day could become tiresome, dangerous, and worse, expensive. Mom assured me that she thought I could do it if I put my mind to it, but she is a woman and does not suffer from the fear of discovery that I did every time I put a dress on. Yet, the lure of having my own column, then vastly greater pay and opportunities, let me push those fears aside, almost. At last we left for the mall, with Mom leading the way. In the lingerie department she held out, for my inspection, several bras. These are sexy, Mark, and with your size 10 figure, you'll be able to wear almost anything. After that, it was a flurry of lace and elastic, as Mom piled panties, a waist nipper, a corselet, slips, 2 nightgowns, and a padded panty girdle in my arms. From there we went to the dress department, where together we picked out 2 skirts, a pastel blue shirtwaist dress, and 2 white blouses. Then we went to the shoe department. I didn't like it, but I tried on a pair of plain black heels and a pair of beige flats. Then we went to a makeup store where I had to endure sitting on the stool while the girl matched makeup to my skin tone. It was almost 9 by the time we got home. I called my franketer the next morning and told him I needed the day off. Mom gave me a bottle and told him to follow the instructions on the side. And once I was in my room, I read the instructions. Naked, I rubbed the stuff all over myself, then waited the required 30 minutes before I stepped into the shower, watching as all of the sparse hair I had washed down the drain, leaving my skin smooth and soft. Then I used an aloe lotion as directed, replacing the lost oils in my skin and making my skin even softer. In my room, I slipped on a pair of the new panties, marveling at the way they fit, and also, they made my skin shiver. The pantyhose were next, and as I slid them up my now smooth legs, I felt that familiar something awakening inside. The padded panty girdle was next, and as I pulled it on, I was aware that I now had the hips of a grown woman. I had never used a padded panty brief before, and liked the way it gave me some shape. The waist nipper, right out of the package, was tight, but it reduced my waist by at least $3 to a very nice $25. The bra I selected was white with lace-trimmed demi-cups. From under my bed, I pulled a small box. Inside were the breast forms I had made for myself long ago. They were made of the thick-skinned balloons like you get at the circus, filled with the blue gel that is used to keep things cold. I slipped them into the cups of the bra, felt the weight of them, and gently squeezed each one. They felt real and filled the cups nicely. Then I slipped on a robe and went to the bathroom. It had been a long time, but I applied the new foundation, using 2 fingers to evenly smooth it out, using a powder to set the foundation, waiting about 5 minutes before I brushed away the excess. I selected a light blue eyeshadow, using the small applicator to draw it on his eyelids, then a soft gray with copper highlights over that. I used a sponge to blend the colors, followed by a black eye pencil to line my lower eyelids, a liquid eyeliner in deep black on the upper lid, put on with a single stroke that gave me sensuous eyes. I could always do eyes really good. Then I called for Mom, who came in a few minutes later. My hair, like many guys my age, was long, and because she had told me she could make it look feminine, I let her try. She rubbed in a gel, then used rollers in a pattern she had selected. I had to sit under a dryer for about 30 minutes before she began to brush my hair out. Using scissors, she trimmed my hair here and there. The results, after she had sprayed it with hairspray, was a definitely feminine hairdo. My soft blonde hair, done this way, almost denied my maleness. She left, and I slipped the shirtwaist dress over my head. Once I had pulled the zipper closed and fastened the belt, I looked in the mirror and saw a familiar face, yet she looked so much better than before. I took a lipstick and traced my mouth in a soft plum, stepped into a pair of new heels, and saw for the first time in many years the girl I always denied I liked becoming. I walked out of my room, my heels silent on the carpet. Then I stepped into the kitchen, the clicking of my heels signaling that I was there. I heard Mom audibly gasp when she saw me. From the top of my blonde hair, down over the gentle swell of my breasts, the material tight against my abdomen, then the skirt flaring over my hips to my shapely legs. As Mark, I had disappeared. "You always were pretty, too." "Rita, ready to go?" I nodded my head, yes. We had decided that I would need several suits, but thought it better that I try them on as Rita so we could make sure they fit right. I went to her room, returning with an old purse of hers which she handed to me. I put my wallet, lipstick, and a few tissues in it, and we left. I had been in the mall dressed as a girl twice before, but I was a mere youngster then. Now it was different, and I knew it. All I could do was the best I could. In the mall, we found several suits that I liked. One was all pink. It had a straight skirt, with a single button jacket that flared over her hips just right. Another was red, but it had a pleated skirt which came above my knees, but not quite as much as the pink skirt. I also found an ivory tea-length dress set that had flowers on it. I tried it on, and found that I really liked it. From there, we went to a jewelry store where I had my ears pierced, then bought some earrings, a few bracelets, and several necklaces. Back in the shoe store, I found both pink and red shoes to match the suits, along with a pair of black patent leather heels. I also bought a new wallet and 2 purses. As much as I was concerned before we went into the mall, not once did anyone look at me funny. "I think you're ready for now, Rita. Why don't we stop at the paper and let John meet his new columnist, Rita Miller?" I knew that I had to do it sooner or later, so I agreed if I could change into the pink suit first and ducked into a changing booth. I knew that I looked good, and I also knew that there was only one way to do this. I had to become Rita, inside and out. I pulled in a deep breath and walked straight into the paper, no hesitation in my step. My heels clicking on the hard tile floor, my skirt swaying to the rhythm of my walk, the scent of perfume followed in my wake as I went to John's door and knocked. "Come in. Yes? How can I help you, ma'am?" "John, I'm Rita." Rita's report. His mouth opened in a gape as he looked at what was, just a few days ago, an energetic young man. He gave me the once-over before he began to question me. "This is a joke, right? You're Mark's sister." "No, John. I am Rita Miller." At our meeting, Mrs. Pierce pointed out that sooner or later, I might have to face those women I write to, and suggested, no, she told me, that this would be better for the paper. So here I am. From now on, I'll be Rita Miller. He was, for the first time in his life, at a loss for words. "Just so I understand this, you'll be coming to work every day dressed as a woman, right?" I nodded my head, yes. I'll give John credit. He didn't even blink. "That means all new ID, press pass, company ID and all. Stan can take the picture of you for the column. I hope you can do this, Rita. God help us if they find you out." I took Mom to where my new office was, then to see Stan, the photographer. He took 3 rolls of film, both black and white, and color. He took both sides, front, sitting, standing, and a few with my mother sitting next to me. "They'll have your new pass and ID by tomorrow. Stop in and see me then." Since it was almost quitting time, we left, deciding to have dinner out. You know, of course, that a lot of the ladies in town, once they find out that you're single, will be trying to fix you up with the right guy, usually a son or nephew or grandson. You better be prepared for that. Mom, I'm not that way. Yes, I know, but they don't. They'll think that you are what you look like, a beautiful young lady. There might even be times when you will need a male escort, like the debutante ball at the country club, for example. I sat there, pondering what was just said, knowing that since I had already committed to the role of female, and as long as the column ran, I would have to be Rita. Mom saw my shoulders slump. You can pretend to pout about this all you want to, Rita, but I'll bet that you dreamed of something like this happening. Given all of the times you dressed as a girl before, you can't really believe I was that naive, do you? Admit it. You like it, but are afraid that somebody will find out, especially me. I already know. I raised my head and slowly smiled at Mom. Just keep it a secret, will you, Mom? Another thing, I'll have to be your niece or something. That way nobody will put it together that I'm not really a girl. No. No? You are my child, regardless of how you dress, and I will not give that up. You have become my daughter, Rita, and we will work out the details later if we have to. Understand? Yes, ma'am. I had made a major confession to Mom when I told her she was right, but she promised to hold that secret to herself. The next morning, I got up early, dressed in the same clothes I wore the day before, and went to work. Taking my time getting ready, I looked just as good as I did the day before, but this time I was alone. Mom wasn't there to protect me if I needed her. As I walked to my office, the softly scented perfume I was wearing brought the keen eyes out of all of the men. They didn't know who I was, not even when I walked into my office. A few minutes later, I hung a handwritten sign outside the door. Rita M. Hansen. Rita's report. I think that's when they knew it that Rita was Mark, or they thought it was anyway, some did. But most were confused. Since it was in the best interest of the paper to keep my actual identity a secret, John told everyone that as Mark, I had gone back to college, but he had hired Rita, still me, in my place, which was very confusing, but really cinched her future. Nobody asked how he was lucky enough to find a reporter named Rita to do the column. Rita's report, or the fact that she and I shared the same last name. But even then, in a room full of nosy reporters, I'm sure they all knew. As the week went on, I was invited to several functions held by various ladies' groups in town, and I graciously accepted them all, wondering the whole time if I could really pull it off. I attended all of the functions, made careful notes, and reported all of it in the column. Some of the women, like Mrs. Carney, deserved to be noted in the paper. Mrs. Carney was 101 years old, walked with only her cane, always had a smile for everyone, and made the best apple pie in the county. Over the next few weeks, I began to find it easier to get ready for work, attend these functions, and seemed to have been accepted by many of the women I met. At the function I had been initially invited to attend by Mrs. Pierce, she positively cooed over me. She introduced me to the women that spearheaded all of the major functions in the city as her newest find, and the women went crazy as they all seemed to clamor to have their names in the paper. I took it all with a smile as expected. After everyone had left, Mrs. Pierce and I had a little chat. "You were fantastic, Rita. Simply wonderful. You had them eating out of your hand in no time." "Thank you, ma'am." "You look simply wonderful, dear. Better than I ever thought a boy could look." "It's a gift of nature, I guess." Mrs. Pierce handed me an envelope and told me to use it to increase my wardrobe, because she had no intention of letting me get away. Then she gave me another raise. Over that same period, my office became very feminine, as women sent me small gifts, little stuffed animals and the like. Mother had given me a small pot of potpourri, which made the office smell very feminine. Since I went to all of the functions, being accepted by everyone as a woman, Mom had suggested several times that she wanted to fix me up, but I resisted every time. By the end of my first whole month as a female, I was tired. Just getting ready for work in the morning seemed to take 45 minutes, when I could be ready in 10 as Mark. "Why don't we both go to the beauty shop, Rita? It always perks me up, and you can have your hair set in a perm, and you can get your nails done. That way, you won't have to take so long to get ready in the morning. As I looked around myself in the mirror and saw nothing but girl, I agreed, went to my room to change into a pair of jeans and a top, and rejoined Mom. I had bought the jeans the weekend before, and they fit me like a coat paint, presenting a very feminine profile whenever I wore them. Every time I had dressed as a girl before, I had used a wig, always wishing I could use my own hair. The feminine beauty I thought I had securely hidden away was in fact well known by Mother. After that first week as Rita, I began to like it more and more, and it seemed that the more I dressed as Rita, the more I wanted to keep dressing as a female, regardless of the time it took to get ready. And now, for the first time in my life, I was about to enter a place that catered to women only. A beauty shop. I also knew that having a permanent would lock me into the role of Rita for a long time. Unless I shaved my head, that is. In the beauty shop, I was shown to Karen's chair. "Hi, Rita. I'm Karen. What can I do for you today?" "I'm not sure, Karen. I haven't been to a shop in a very long time. I want a career-type cut, but I want a perm in it." "Let's look at my books." We went through the books, deciding on a style. It would be just above my neck, fuller on top, with waves cascading down the sides. "How about we lighten it a bit while you're here, Rita? Wash out the stray colors." I said yes, and Karen began. After the permanent solution was in, Beth came in and started on my nails. She used acrylics to both lengthen and strengthen my nails, filing them to a rounded end and using a soft mauve for color. By the time I left the shop, I did feel better, more feminine than ever before. My nails glistened under the lights as they reflected off the mauve polish, while my new hair color made my whole face brighter. My mother stood up when I walked out. "You look marvelous, Rita." On the way to the car, she said, "I found a shop that you might want to visit. They specialize in helping girls like you, the ones that have a less than full chest." Mother and I drove across town to a small shop. The door chimed as they walked in. "Hello, may I help you?" "Yes, this is my daughter Rita. I called you earlier today about her needs." "Oh, yes." The woman locked the door and motioned for us to follow her. I had to strip down to my panties so the woman, Ann Johnson, could do her magic. "This will take about 3 hours, Mrs. Hanson. Perhaps you would like to come back later, while Rita and I take care of things here." When Mom left, Ann explained exactly what was involved, and then began. A mold of my chest was taken, then a male was made that matched my male chest. From a drawer, Ann took out some molds and tried several before she was certain she had the right one. She poured liquid latex into the mold and put in a small oven to cure. Then she brushed latex over the male mold, making it several mils thick, and started to cure that as well. "I know it is embarrassing, dear, but can you step out of your panties?" By this time, I just gave up and stripped. Then Anne handed me a very special panty. It looked exactly like a woman, and I held it with 2 fingers. It was open in the back. "Let me help you, dear." The panty had a special sheath for my member, so I rolled it on like a condom. At the end of it was a tube that coiled around and terminated in exactly the place a woman's would. I pulled the panty to my waist, the tight latex firm against my skin. In the rear, Anne showed me how to use the special glue. "This will hold the edges down. Now you can still function, but even if you undress in front of someone, they will see that you are a woman. Go look in the mirror." I walked over to the mirror and saw for myself that I had what appeared to be natural width hips, a rounded bottom, a narrow waist, and best of all, a vagina. If you like, you can also function as a woman wearing that panty, Rita. The look of confusion on my face made Anne be a bit more explicit. "You can have sex, Rita, sex with a man." As I slipped my panties back on and saw how much better they fit, I smiled at the thought of just being able to have sex with a guy. Not that I wanted to, but then again, I never expected to be living as a woman full-time either. Just then, the bell rang, signaling that the latex had cured. Anne made several quick cuts and took the rest to me. Holding it to my chest, Anne marked where she needed to cut and began trimming. She held the actual breast form against my chest, made some more marks, and cut some more. When she was done, she molded the two pieces together, and with her special glue, she attached them to my chest, then filled them with the right amount of silicone. With just the tiniest bit of makeup, she hid the seams, making detection impossible. I was standing in front of the full-length mirror naked when Mom came in, gasping at what she saw. Standing in front of her was a young lady, all traces of male gone. That is simply the best disguise I have ever seen, Anne. Mom, she told me that everything works too. Everything. I got dressed while Mom watched. She saw new breasts hanging as I bent over, while my now wider and rounder bottom looked like every other young lady's. I wrote a check to pay for Anne's services, glad to do so. That's quite a figure you have now, Rita. 36, 24, 36. I can assume that by saying that everything works, that you can have sex? That's what Anne told me, Mom. She gave me a booklet to read so I can keep everything clean. It was a much more assured woman that I had become. The addition of the special panty and her new breasts made all of the difference, as I could now wear, do, or act like any other girl my age. On Monday, I got a call from Mrs. Pierce inviting me to her home on the following Saturday for a casual function. Bring a swimsuit, dear. My granddaughter Jessica has invited some of her friends over as well. She's about your age. I'm sure that you'll hit it off right away. I said that I would be there. With the addition of my new breast forms, and of course the special panty, I had started wearing lower-cut blouses. Not slut-low, but lower. I went to the mall that afternoon to buy a swimsuit. I tried on several, all of which looked nice. But I wanted to make a statement, so I took the bright red bikini. It had a full-cut panty bottom. The top, like most bikinis, exposed a lot while covering just a little. I knew that I was being tested, but I looked good in that bikini and knew that I was going to win Mrs. Pierce's little test. My column had become required reading by the ladies in the town, and I was always in demand as a speaker or guest, and the paper had a small increase in circulation, all because of my column. Mrs. Pierce was pushing me, and I knew it. But I was ahead of her with this one, and I wouldn't decline this invitation. Wearing a short, pleated white skirt and a blue blouse with my tennis shoes, I looked every bit at home as any other woman there. Mrs. Pierce was surprised to see me looking better than the first time she saw me, and gave me a severe look over. She saw the hair, blonder than before, the nails perfectly done, obviously by a professional, my makeup perfect, no trace of a beard showing, my shapely, well-tapered legs below a well-rounded bottom, my breasts looking firm and pert under the blouse. The others are on the patio, Rita. I must say, you look smashing. Better than I ever imagined possible. I smiled back, but knew that when I appeared in the bikini, Mrs. Pierce would swallow her tongue. Hi, I'm Jessica. Grandma told me you were coming. Let me introduce you to everyone. Jessica took my hand as we made the rounds. The other girls were Rachel, a trim knockout, her Italian heritage clear from her dark eyes and well-tanned skin. Laura was the shortest, with auburn hair and the bluest eyes I had ever seen. Amy was a bit older than the rest, but every bit as good-looking. She had soft brown hair and eyes, a 38, 24, 38 figure, and a winning smile. The guys were Jack. He and Amy were a couple. Brian, he and Rachel had been going together for a long time. Mike, who had stayed by Laura's side. Daniel, Jessica's boyfriend, and Robert. I hope you don't mind, Rita. I invited Robert so that we could pair off later if we decide to dance. I saw the way that he looked at me. I felt his eyes on me as he walked over to shake my hand. Hi, Rita. I'm Robert Benson. Would you like a drink? She said she would, and he went off to get it. She sat at one of the poolside tables with Jessica and Laura. My grandma says that you write the new column in the paper. You have any plans to include women our age, Rita? I intend to cover most everything, but since the women that usually read my column are older, I'll probably devote more to them than us. Laura had always been a little blunt, so when she said, "Judging by the way Bob looked at you, I'm willing to bet he makes it a point try and get to know you better." Bob returned with their drinks, and the girls quit talking about him. Jack and Daniel did the barbecuing, telling everyone that it would be about an hour before the steaks were done, so the girls decided to change into their swimsuits and take a dip in the pool. "Come on, Rita, grab your suit. We're about to drive the guys crazy." It was the first time I would have to undress in front of other girls, and hoped that my disguise would pass. All 5 of the girls, once in Jessica's room, stripped their clothes off, and I did likewise, quickly slipping my bottoms on and pulling them snug. The bra to the bikini left no doubt about my figure. My nicely rounded bottom, now encased in the thin red material as it hugged my skin tightly, both front and back, gave no hint that I was a male. All of the girls wore bikinis, and all but me knew that they had the power to make the guys pay close attention to them if they wanted it. When we walked out on the patio, all of the guys turned and watched. Jessica was the first on in the pool, diving in right away. Still unsure of myself dressed this way, I stepped in from the shallow end. Mrs. Pierce had watched all of us girls walk onto the patio from her study and saw for herself just how far her newest columnist had gone to meet her guidelines, and she was very impressed. Bob, Brian, and Mike stripped off their shorts and shirts and joined us in the pool. They each headed for their girls. "You have a terrific figure, Rita. It's a shame that you hide it so well." "The life of a career woman, Bob. I have to dress for the job." He leaned against the side of the pool next to me. Then I felt his arm as he placed it around me. We had a bit of small talk before he pulled me, gently, close to him. I had, in my wandering dreams, always wondered what a girl felt like when she was sought after by a handsome young man, and now, I thought, I'm going to find out. He helped me out of the pool when Daniel said the steaks were ready, my slender form pressing against his naked, hairy chest as I stepped on the cold tile. I felt his arm around my waist as he led me to the table. The other girls watched as Bob refused to let me move, insisting that he get my plate. I sat in the shade, remembering what Anne had told me. "You have to remember that latex doesn't tan honey. Stay out of the sun if you can." It was a pleasant afternoon, Bob always nearby, except when we girls changed their clothes again. Later, on the way home, I recalled that, without hesitation, I had given Robert Benson my phone number and wondered why. On Monday, I went to the paper's library and looked up everything I could find on Bob and his family. I found out that he came from a very wealthy family of merchant bankers. He was 24, had a graduate degree from Harvard in economics, had one sister, Emily, and was currently working as the international fund manager for the bank. On the way back to my office, my short red skirt flipping from one side to the other, my heels clicking on the floor, I knew that I wanted to see him again. Not because he was wealthy, of course, but because he awakened in me those repressed dreams I had always had as a child, and then a young man. Opening my office door, I was surprised to see Mrs. Pierce sitting there. "Hello, Rita. I wanted to stop by and tell you that you have exceeded even my expectations." I got up and closed the door. "You are a lovely girl. Beautiful, in fact. I talked to Jessica, and she said that you changed clothes with the other girls and that you had a knockout figure. Now either you are really a girl or you are the best female impersonator in the world." "I am what I've always been, Mrs. Pierce. All my life I had hidden the fact that I liked dressing as a girl once in a while. Now, after a few weeks as Rita, I feel like it should have been this way all along. Even if you take the column away from me, I intend to keep living as Rita." Dorothy saw the tears starting to well up in my eyes and handed me a tissue. "Honey, you are what you are. Your column is a smash hit, and I have no intention of canceling it. I talked to your mother on the phone this morning, about you. I now know a bit more, and believe me, I understand. My late husband liked to dress in the feminine once in a while, and I came to understand it better as the years went by. As I understand it, Very few people know the truth about you. You, your mother, myself, and John. Jessica and her friends are convinced that you are what you seem to be. A beautiful, single woman. Let's keep it that way, shall we? I smiled through her tears as she and Dorothy hugged. Robert called me that same night, asking me out to dinner on Thursday evening. And of course, I accepted. Mother had been watching the changes in me as I became her daughter and decided that they had to talk. Rita, I know that you like being a girl, but since you never got the education in womanhood, I think that we should have a talk. I sat across from Mother, waiting patiently for her to begin. Since you can literally have sex with a man, I want you to know that I don't want you to just give yourself to a man just so that you can try it. I wasn't raised to be that way, and I don't expect it from you. Women can get pregnant on the first time, so even if we both know that you cannot, I want you to insist that any man you allow to use you uses protection. I was stunned that Mom brought it up. I had always thought that Mom lived in the dark ages. I called your Aunt Susan and told her that when she and David and her kids come over on Christmas, that Rita would be here. Now tell me about this young man, Robert. I described him, my voice giving away the excitement he had caused me. Mom saw the way I looked as I talked and was pretty sure that I had a strong attraction to him. Robert rang the doorbell right on time, and Mom opened the door and immediately saw why I thought he was so handsome. He was. Just for this occasion, I had bought a new outfit. It was a light green sheath dress with a square-cut neckline. Perched in my taupe heels, my legs were shapely, the hem just above my knees, showing them to perfection. I wore minimal makeup, just earrings, and my watch for jewelry. Robert greeted me with a peck on the cheek. We said goodbye and left. Robert was attentive to my every need, polite and very sure of himself. I had never in my life been treated like this, and I soaked it up. On the way home, he stopped the car on a secluded street and drew me close to him, and I let him kiss me. Before long, I found my arms around his shoulders, returning his ardor. His hot breath on my neck drove me crazy as he managed to push every one of my buttons. I felt his hardness against my leg, startling me, and finally asked him to take me home. In my room, I knew that I had crossed some barrier. Without thinking, I put on my sexiest baby doll nightgown and went to bed. My Aunt Susan called me at the office the next day. Mom says that you are a woman now. When did this happen? Before I could answer, Susan said that before she could tell David or bring the kids, she would have to see for herself. We made arrangements to meet halfway, about an hour drive for me. We agreed on Saturday. Susan, my aunt, is actually only a few years older than I am. She was sitting at a booth waiting when I walked in. For the meeting with Susan, she decided to wear the light green chemise again. I walked right up to Susan and sat down. Sorry, this booth is taken. I'm waiting for a friend. Susan! It's me! Rita! The look on Susan's face was worth the drive if nothing else. Oh my God, you're gorgeous! How did you… have you… Calm down, Susan, and I'll tell you a story. I proceeded to tell her everything, even offering to show her the special panty Anne had provided. No thanks, Rita. I know what girls look like. Your mom said that you have a boyfriend, is that right? Well, not exactly a boyfriend, Susan. He is a male, and he is a friend, and we have gone out to dinner, but nothing more than that. But he does have the hots for me. That much I do know for sure. Susan looked at me, and I saw a different kind of look in her eye. I can remember when you used to wear girls' clothes now and then, so your liking to be a girl doesn't surprise me too much. It's how pretty you are that surprises me. Now, what do we tell David? Maybe we could tell him the truth, Susan. Can he keep this kind of secret? Nobody knows except for just a few people. If it got out, I would lose a lot. He'll keep it. The very first time he sees you, he'll have the hots for you. He's a leg man, and you have a pair of doozies, girl. We had a light lunch, then decided that since her kids were so small, that I would be Aunt Rita from then on. I gave her several of the pictures that Stan had taken, including one of Mother and I. When I got home, I went to my room and undressed, taking both the panty and the breast forms off. Once a week, Anne had told her, for at least 4 hours, so the skin has a chance to breathe. I cleaned the glue away, wiping my chest and bottom with alcohol. The panty and breast forms had to be cleaned with soap and water, followed by alcohol so that any trace of bacteria was cleaned off. Wearing a robe, I felt naked, not quite whole under the thin cotton robe. I went back to my room and put a bra on and used the old forms to fill the cups. It was a good thing I did, since Robert dropped by unexpectedly, and Mom let him in. "Hi, Rita. I just stopped by to see if you have been invited to the Christmas dance at the country club yet." "No, I haven't." Mom saw the way I smiled at him and knew in her heart that he would be the first man to sleep with me. Robert turned to Mother and asked if she would like to accompany us. "It's the biggest dance of the season, ma'am. I would consider it an honor if you would join us." "He's very gallant," she thought. "Thank you, Robert. I'd be happy to join you." He could see that I wasn't dressed to go anywhere, so he left, but not before he asked me she wanted to go on a drive the next day. I did. That night, I endured the smelly cream again and removed any trace of body hair, then sat in a bubble bath, soaking and shaving those small areas that I couldn't use the cream on, like my groin. When I stepped out of the tub, I was hairless except for my head. The next morning, I put the special panty on carefully, using extra glue, wiping away any excess. For the drive, I decided to wear the short white skirt again, with a loose-fitting top, without, for the first time, a bra. My panties were white satin. No pantyhose. Nothing to stop his searching hands. I had fought with myself about this, but I had been living as a woman for over 6 months now, and decided that since I was now living as a female, and could function as one, Robert was the one that was about to prove it, to him certainly, but myself as well, that I am a woman. My hair fell right into place, my makeup barely enough. His car was a convertible, so I wore a scarf as we raced through the countryside towards a park. He carried the basket, and I spread out the blanket. The bright sun was shaded by a large oak tree. The hill he had chosen gave us a view for miles around. I started to set things out when he took me into his arms. I was like a rag doll in his arms as he kissed me, his hands feeling my cute bottom. He lay me down, and as I looked up at him, he took his shirt off. He got down next to me and placed his hand on my right breast. I could feel his hand since the forms fit so well, moaned in anticipation as he ran his hand over my body while he kissed me. I felt his arm against me as he reached under my skirt, then touched my womanhood. Knowing what I wanted to do, I rolled him over and unbuckled his pants and took them off as he shimmied them down his strong legs. His hardness was beckoning me, and for the first time in my life, I took another man's member in her hand. "Can I kiss it?" was all I said as he lay back. I held his velvety soft but very hard member in my hand and kissed the tip of it, just before I took all of him in my mouth. That morning I had prepared carefully, lubricating the false vagina, and I raised myself, then placed his tool in the right place and lowered myself. He gasped, and I smiled at him. I was in charge as I ran my hands through his chest hair, rocking back and forth. I felt him starting to heave as he let go, filling me with his love potion. He rolled me off to the side, but stayed inside of me, waiting until he was hard again. His slow strokes could be felt inside the panty, making me, I was surprised to find out, quiver. I could feel every stroke he took. He filled me again, his love draining away as he spent himself. Naked, I went behind the tree to clean myself up, using a wash rag I had in my purse, just for that purpose. I straightened myself out, slipped my panties back on, and went back to the blanket. Bob had his briefs on, and nothing else. I raked my fingers in his hair as he pulled me close to him. Neither of us could seem to get enough of the other. We ate a lunch and lay back on the blanket again, and I placed my hand on his member, then felt it rise against me again. This time, I took him in my mouth until he was spent. The ride home was quiet, Robert in love, and I wanted more than a rubber panty to please my man. Now I knew exactly what I wanted. Robert dropped me off, watching as I went in the house. Mom saw me come in, the look on my face, the thin smile I always got when I got my way, and knew without a doubt that I had given myself to Robert. On Monday, I went to work, even more assured of my femininity than ever before. I'd done something with Robert that only since I had started living as a woman had I ever considered, except in my wildest dreams. As Mark, I would have never had any kind of sex with Robert, but as a woman, I wanted it. I wanted to be a woman in every sense of the word. The Christmas dance was always a big affair, and Dorothy Pierce called me to make sure that I had an invitation, then reminded me that unescorted ladies were not allowed. I told her I had an escort and an invitation, which Dorothy correctly figured was Robert. Then I called our family doctor and made an appointment for that afternoon. Wearing my red suit, I walked into the doctor's office, startling him. He started to say something, thought better of it, and took me into an examining room. Before you start, I have been living as a woman for almost 2 months now, Dr. Baker. I want to become a woman. Can you help me? I think so, Mark. That's not right, is it? It's Rita now. He asked me to strip, finding the panty and breast forms ingeniously made. Then he watched as I carefully removed them. Clever. Very clever, Rita. He examined me, then prescribed female hormones. By summer, you won't need the breast forms, Rita, and by this time, next year, the panty can go as well. Then I got dressed again and headed for my next appointment, to remove her beard. For the entire week, I went to various events, my column becoming more and more popular. My hair had grown out and needed to be redone, so Mom and I decided to go to a spa and get the works. By the time I left the spa, I had been baked, kneaded, washed first in hot water, then doused in cold water, had my hair, makeup, and nails done over. Refreshed, we went to the mall looking for new dresses for the dance. Mom decided on a mauve evening gown that had sequins sewn on all over it. I wanted something sexy yet tasteful, and I found a white sheath dress with a low back, sleeveless, sheer front piece, with the dress held in place by a single tie around her neck. It was tea-length and looked wonderful, but the zipper was just a little snug on me. Buy it, Rita. We can find just what you need to make the dress fit. We paid for the dresses. Then, carrying mine over my arm, I was led into a lingerie shop. Do you have corsets? My daughter needs to get into this dress of hers. The woman showed us where to look, and it wasn't long before I found myself being laced into a corset. By the time Mom was done with those laces, my waist could not have been any larger than 22. I can hardly move, Mom. Beauty comes with a price, dear. Try the dress on. I walked out of the changing room, the light reflecting from the rhinestones clips that held the dress together. Everyone said it was perfect. The dance was on the weekend before Christmas, which would fall on Saturday this year, which would give me a chance to include the dance in that week's column. Mom and I stayed home on Sunday. Then, on Monday evening, we went out looking for the perfect jewelry for our dresses. By Friday, my column was done, and I left early so that I could get ready. This was the second largest affair of the year in their city, the debutante ball the biggest. Saturday afternoon, I started to get dressed. A long, hot bubble bath, aloe lotion rubbed all over, and a careful shave. My makeup skills had gotten so good that I could hide any defect I found. I had started with a new foundation that was an even better match for my skin tone. A powder finish, the rose eyeshadow with silver highlights to accent the dress, a thin coral line under each eyebrow, deep black eyeliner on both upper and lower lids, mascara brushed on several times, making my eyes sultry and sexy. I had been wearing the new corset for a few days to get used to it, and now I could pull the laces tight by herself. I was down to 126 pounds now, and with the special panty and the corset, I had a 36, 22, 36 figure. Hose and garters instead of pantyhose, I clipped the hose to the garters, adjusting the tension. The eye sat at the vanity and fixed my new hairstyle, fixing it in place with some hairspray. I gave myself a few shots of perfume and slipped the dress over my head. The shoes were silver lame, with rhinestone clips on the toes that matched my bracelet and earrings. I didn't wear a bra since the corset did the work, and my breasts could almost be seen through the thin material of the dress, which is exactly what I wanted. Using a red lip pencil, I outlined my mouth, then filled in using a bright red lipstick that matched the color of my nails. Just as I stood up to see myself in the mirror and do a last check on herself, Mom walked in. "Marilyn Monroe, in that dress, that's who you remind me of, Rita. If that doesn't make your young man jealous, nothing will." I blushed for the first time in a long time. I borrowed Mother's white fur while she wore the mink. We had just walked into the living room when the doorbell rang. Robert was resplendent in his tuxedo as Mom let him in. When he saw me, I could see that he was awed. "I have to be the luckiest guy there tonight. I'll have the privilege of escorting the two most beautiful women in town." Mom had kept her figure over the years, and at 51, she was still a beautiful woman, trim and pert. The resemblance between us was easily spotted. He helped us with our wraps and escorted us to the limousine. He tried to suppress his grin as he led us into the ballroom and across the dance floor. We had been seated with Mrs. Pierce and her escort, Mr. Walter Heighton, Robert's mom and dad, and Mr. Anthony Brown. Introductions were made, and at the first note of the music, Robert took me to the dance floor. It started as a waltz, but segued into a tango. I followed him perfectly as we glided around the dance floor with an ease that looked like we had been dancing together for many years. Dominic asked Mom to dance, and soon the whole table was dancing. Because the paper was this year's sponsor, Dorothy had the privilege of making the announcements. She was smashing in a rose-colored organza dress that revealed nothing, but hinted at everything. "Ladies and gentlemen, many of you have asked me to introduce our star columnist, so without any delay, Rita, come up here, please." Applause surrounded me as I walked across the floor and mounted the stairs to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Rita Marie Hansen. If you saw them dancing out there, it is obvious that they belong together, and Rita, who will be soon, if don't miss my guess, become engaged to Robert Benson." Robert smiled at me while I swallowed my tongue. "Remember, guys, she's taken, but I'm still single." That brought out a few laughs. Robert rushed to the stage and escorted us back to the table. Everyone was smiling at Robert and I when I sat down. "I've heard a lot about you, dear. All good. You're the only thing Robert talks about anymore." His mother was sharp, I had heard, and I knew that I had to be very careful around her. "That dress is quite revealing, isn't it?" Margaret, Robert's mother, was going for the jugular. She was the kind of mother that thought that there were few women good enough for her son, and since I knew that already, I was prepared. "I didn't buy the dress to please you, Mrs. Benson. I bought it to please Robert." Robert's dad almost choked on his coffee as he watched his wife sputter for an answer. "It's Bob's choice, Margaret. Butt out. It seems the lady is quite unafraid of you." Unknown to Robert or I, Margaret got exactly the answer she wanted. She wanted him to have a strong wife, and she knew that I was certainly strong. By the end of the evening, Mom and Dominic were gone, saying they were going to go count stars or something, so Robert and I lounged in the back of the limousine alone. For the first time, I invited Robert to my room, and once again we expressed their love for one another in more physical terms. The next morning, I untangled myself from his arms and went to the bathroom to make sure that what was left of my light beard would not give me away. It wouldn't. In my baby doll nightgown and a robe, I went to the kitchen and made some coffee, taking a pot and 2 cups back to the room. He was still asleep, but I found a way to awaken him. I nibbled on his ear. "I have fresh coffee. Do you want tea? Or maybe me?" He rolled over and grabbed me in his arms and pulled me close. My perfume made him excited, but I pulled away laughing as I stood on the foot of the bed, then took my robe off first, and then, slowly, my baby doll. Then I woke him up. We were still in bed drinking coffee when Mom stuck her head in. Everybody decent? Come in, Mom. Even though Robert and I were naked under the sheets, Mom said nothing at all. I guess she expected it. You just coming in, Mom? Yes. Dom and I had a lot of stars to count. She was smiling when she closed the door to my room. It was almost 10 a.m. by the time Robert had gone home. Both Mom and I had taken showers and were lounging in our robes, watching television. You're going to have to tell him soon, Rita. Dorothy was right, I think. He is about to ask you to marry him, and you can't go through life in a rubber panty. I know, Mom. That's why I started on hormones almost 2 months ago. Dr. Baker said that by summer I won't need the breast forms, and by this time next year I'll be a woman. I've also been having my beard removed. Another few months and poof, no beard. But you're right. I should tell him. I just don't know how. You'll find a way, Rita. The very next day, she called Robert and asked if he could come over that evening. Wearing my best suit, Mom and I waited until he was seated on the couch. Robert, I think you know how much I love you, but there is something you have to know about me. He was leaning forward to hear her because she was speaking so softly. I can't have children, Robert. Never. I don't care about that, Rita. We can adopt. Wait, there's more. I was clutching Mother's hand hard. I used to be like you, a male. I still have some surgeries to go through, and I'll be the woman you want. If you still want me, that is. Robert was stunned, to say the least. He made no move towards me as confusion reigned across his face. But I mean you and I last night. It's a device I use, Robert. That doesn't mean I love you any less. It just means that you have to wait a bit longer for the real me. I got up and ran to her room, a flood of tears mixed with the sobs of a terrorized heart. She really loves you, Robert. She couldn't have told you if she didn't. It's up to you now. He shook his head. I thought that she and I would… I guess I don't know what I mean. No matter who or what she is, you love her and you know it. Look at it this way. Many women can't have kids. So what? If you love her, like I know that you do, you go up those stairs and tell her right now. He looked at Mom, then the stairs. His heart won. He climbed the stairs slowly, walking to my door. Then, without knocking, he opened the door and saw me face down on the bed, crying into my pillow. His weight as he knelt on the bed caused me to roll over, facing him. He took me in his arms, and we both cried the tears of love and compassion. We lay on the bed for a long time, so close it was if they were a single body. I told him about the surgery, having my beard removed, and when I would have breasts of my own. He replied by taking my clothes off, then stripping as I watched. As we stared at the ceiling, he asked me to marry him. We'll have to wait until after you have your surgery, of course. What about next December, just before Christmas? That was all I wanted to hear. He left several hours later, after we told Mom that she was about to have a new son-in-law. I was on cloud 9 as I wrote my column that week. I didn't mention anything about my engagement to Robert, but somebody, probably Dorothy, added it to my column. Christmas morning was hectic as Mom and I got ready for Susan and her family to arrive. Mom had invited Dominic, and I had invited Robert. It promised to be a special day for everyone. Dominic arrived first, greeting Mom in a very friendly manner, which made me smile. Mom had been single for quite a long time. Now it was time for her to find someone. Susan and the kids came in shouting and yelling like most kids do. Susan looked at me and sensed that something was different, but she just couldn't put a finger on it. David looked at me, unable to see anything but a beautiful young woman. We heard a knock on the door, and Susan opened it to admit Robert. That's when she knew why I looked different. I was in love. Over the dinner table, Robert stood and said he had a question. Formally, my dear, will you marry me? He held out a ring that was at least 3 carats. I took it in my hand and slipped the ring on her finger. Yes! Everyone applauded as we hugged and kissed, Susan hugging me tightly. On the other end of the table, Dominic stood up. I too have a question. Linda, will you accompany me to Europe? I have many plants to visit, and your company will make it bearable for me. Mom smiled and nodded her head, yes. Looks like the scarves we got you two aren't going to measure up today. Susan nudged her husband as he smiled at everyone. After the first of the year, I legally changed my name. By summer, I no longer needed the breast forms. My column was now syndicated, and Robert and I were building a house. Dr. Dar. Baker moved my surgery date up, and at the end of August, I had completed my transformation. I waited, like Dr. Baker told me, but during the first week of October, I lost my true virginity to Robert. Every touch of his hand made me quiver when he made love to me. The first time he held me that way, I clung to him, terrified the moment would vanish if I let go. 1 week before Christmas, vows echoed through the cathedral, candles flickered, and I walked down the aisle in a blur of light and trembling breath. The crowd blurred. Only his eyes mattered. We escaped beneath a storm of rice, hearts pounding with the promise of a new life. Behind us, 2 women lingered at the steps, their laughter sharp as bells in the cold air. "You were right all along," one whispered. "There was always a girl inside, she just needed the right push." Their secret triumph hung in the night, a reminder that this story was never as simple as love or fate. It had always been a dangerous game, and I had become its perfect prize.